It was supposed to be a peaceful afternoon in a quiet neighborhood park, a place where kids laughed without worry, dogs chased frisbees, and parents sat on benches scrolling their phones, thinking the world was safe enough to look away. But in less than 30 seconds, all of that changed. One moment, a little boy was tossing a soccer ball near the swings. The next, a dog charged from the bushes like a bullet from a gun, snarling, foaming, wild-eyed. And just when it looked like no one would get there in time, a stranger did something that turned an ordinary park into the scene of a miracle. He didn't hesitate. He didn't ask questions. He jumped the fence, and everything changed. Now, you're probably wondering, who was that stranger? Why was the dog there in the first place? Was the boy okay? And what would make someone risk everything, maybe even their life, for a kid they didn't even know? Trust me, you're going to get every answer you came here looking for. But not just that, by the time you get to the end of this video, you're going to understand something deeper. Something about human nature, about courage, about those rare moments when ordinary people become heroes. Not because they have to, but because something inside them refuses to do nothing. Stick with me, because this story will take turns you won't expect, and what happens after the cameras stop rolling is where the real truth lives. If you're watching this right now, that means you're not someone who just scrolls past. You're the kind of person who wants to know what really happened, someone who understands that beneath every headline or viral video, there's always more to the story. Maybe you've got kids of your own, and just thinking about a dog attack makes your stomach turn. Maybe you're a dog lover and you're wondering, what went wrong? How does a loyal pet snap like that? Or maybe you've had a moment in your own life, big or small, where you had to act fast when fear gave way to instinct. Whatever it is, you're here now, and I want you to know you're in the right place. Because this isn't just about what happened. It's about why it happened, and how one person's split-second decision reminded an entire neighborhood what real bravery looks like. I'll be honest with you, there are parts of this story that are hard to hear. We're not sugarcoating anything. This isn't some feel-good montage set to dramatic music. This is real life, raw, emotional, terrifying, and, yes, inspiring. What you're about to see is a true story that was captured not by a film crew or staged in any way, but through shaky phone footage, eyewitness accounts, and raw interviews that reveal what most people missed. You're going to walk in the shoes of a terrified child, feel the heartbeat of a man who didn't think twice before risking his own safety, and watch a community wrestle with tough questions about responsibility, justice, and the thin line between danger and safety when it comes to animals and people living side by side. But before we get too deep, let me paint the full picture for you, not with dramatics, but with honesty. It was just after 4 p.m. on a Wednesday. You know, that midweek lull when people are either picking up kids, heading home from work, or taking a much-needed mental breather. The park was alive but calm. There was a mom on the bench with a stroller, earbuds in. A man walking his golden retriever. Teenagers near the basketball court recording TikToks. Everything felt typical, familiar. And in the middle of it all, a boy named Tyler, 7 years old, full of energy, wearing a red hoodie with the sleeves slightly too long, was kicking a ball near the sandbox. His mom was only a few feet away, chatting with another parent. That's how fast it happened. That's how quickly everything can change. Suddenly, from a path lined with trees on the park's far edge, a dog appeared. Not just any dog, a large, muscular pit bull mix. No leash. No owner in sight. Its body was stiff. Its gaze locked on Tyler. And then, it ran. Not in play. Not with curiosity. With intent. You could see it in the way its paws pounded the earth, the way its ears were pinned back, the way the fur on its spine bristled like a storm was about to hit. People screamed. Someone dropped their phone. The boy froze, unsure if this was a game or something else. But before anyone could react, the dog lunged. Now, I know what you're thinking. How does a dog like that even get into a public park without a leash? Where was its owner? And more importantly, why didn't anyone get there sooner? I promise, we're going to answer every one of those questions, because this story goes far beyond a single moment. It pulls back the curtain on something that's happening more often than people realize: the silent rise of off-leash attacks in public spaces, the controversial debate around breed bans, and the legal gray area that many dog owners walk without even knowing it. But at the heart of it all, what matters most is what happened next. Out of nowhere, from behind the metal fence that separates the basketball court from the rest of the park, a figure moved. A man. Hoodie up. Maybe late 30s. No one saw where he came from. He wasn't with any of the families. Wasn't holding a phone. He was just there. And as the dog clamped its jaws near the boy's side, the man sprinted. Full speed. Like he didn't even think. In one motion, he vaulted the fence, landed hard, and hurled himself at the dog without hesitation. And right there, in that split second, the entire dynamic shifted. What happens next, the struggle, the screams, the decisions made under pressure, is what we're about to dive into in this video. But one thing is already clear. This wasn't just luck. This was something else. Something rare. As this story unfolds, we're going to look at every angle: the psychological toll on the child, the legal aftermath that stunned the dog's owner, the community response that divided neighbors, and the identity of the man who risked everything and then quietly walked away before anyone could even thank him. You're going to see real footage, hear from real people, and by the end, you might find yourself asking, would I have done the same thing? That's what makes this story powerful. Not just the action, but the questions it raises about who we are when it counts the most. So stay with me, because I promise you're not going to want to miss what happens next. The truth behind the dog's behavior, the man's identity, and the shocking twist that no one saw coming. It's all just getting started. And then he reached into his jacket, and what he pulled out turned everything upside down. Are you ready for this? Let's dive in. What he pulled from his jacket wasn't a weapon, though that's what everyone in the park feared in that split second. It was a thick, leather leash looped at one end, cracked and worn, like it had seen years of use. He snapped it in the air with a sharp motion, a sound so distinct it cut through the chaos like a lightning strike. The dog, mid-lunge, froze for a half-second, ears twitching at the familiar sound. That was all he needed. In one swift movement, the man lunged, wrapped the leash around the dog's neck, and yanked hard, twisting his body to throw the animal off balance. The beast snarled and flailed, teeth flashing as it fought back, but the man didn't let go. He gritted his teeth, muscles tensed, every movement filled with the brutal clarity of someone who'd done this before. This wasn't a fluke. This wasn't luck. This was training or trauma. As the dust settled and the boy was pulled away, crying but miraculously uninjured, people rushed in. Phones were out, 911 had been called, and the entire park had transformed into a scene of both horror and awe. But by the time paramedics and police arrived, the man was gone. He left no name, no contact information, no trace. The only thing he left behind was a park full of stunned parents and one tightly coiled leash, dropped next to the bench like a signature left on a masterpiece. In the hours that followed, whispers turned into rumors. Someone said they recognized him, that he used to walk dogs in the area years ago before disappearing. Another claimed he'd seen him outside a shelter 2 towns over, the kind of place where aggressive dogs go when no one else will take them. Still, others insisted he was homeless, a ghost who roamed the edges of the city with nothing but a backpack and a hood. No one could agree on anything, except for one detail: he moved like someone who knew that dog. Not just dogs in general, but that dog specifically. And that's when the real mystery began to unfold. Tyler's mother, still in shock, told police that the dog didn't seem unfamiliar. She'd seen it once before, weeks ago, tied to a pole outside the local convenience store near their house. No collar, no tags. Just sitting there, panting in the sun like it was waiting for someone who never came back. She remembered it because Tyler had tried to pet it, and she'd yanked him away, muttering something about strays not being safe. But now she wondered, was it really a stray? Or had someone brought it there on purpose? That question hit the local community like a thunderbolt. People started posting on Facebook groups and Reddit threads. Some were convinced it was part of a growing problem they'd been warning about for months: abandoned dogs being used for backyard breeding, or worse, underground fighting rings. Others thought it was just a freak accident, an isolated case of an animal pushed too far for reasons no one could fully understand. But a few believed something darker was at play, that the dog had been trained to attack, that someone wanted it to find a target, and that brought everyone's attention back to the man with the hood and the leash. Who was he really? Was he just a good Samaritan who happened to be in the right place at the right time? Or did he have a connection to that dog? A connection that explained why he risked everything to stop it? One theory that picked up traction online suggested he was a former K9 trainer who'd lost his license after a tragic accident. A few users claimed to have seen someone fitting his description at a dog rehabilitation center in the next county over, a place known for taking in animals that other shelters had given up on. But when reporters went there looking for answers, no one admitted to knowing him. They just said what everyone else was starting to think. If he had worked there, he didn't want to be found. Meanwhile, another question was growing louder by the hour. Who owned the dog? No one came forward. No missing posters. No reports. Nothing in the system matched the dog's appearance or behavior. Animal control took custody, and vets found no microchip, no medical records, nothing that could connect the dog to a name or address. That alone raised eyebrows. In today's world of smart collars and GPS tracking, a large, powerful dog with zero digital footprint wasn't just rare, it was suspicious. Some began to speculate that the dog was dumped there intentionally, unleashed in a public space to see what it would do. A test. And that's when the first red herring surfaced. A man named Curtis Jensen was briefly detained by police after being seen watching the scene from across the street that day. He was a former dog trainer with a rough reputation, recently fired from a kennel for disciplinary reasons. Locals said he'd been acting strange lately, muttering to himself, hanging around parks, feeding strays. His social media was full of angry rants about breed discrimination, animal rights, and cryptic posts about setting them free. Police questioned him, searched his small apartment, and found multiple leashes and a stack of old training manuals, but no evidence linking him to the attack. Still, many were convinced he had something to do with it. Maybe he raised the dog. Maybe he let it go. Maybe he wanted to make a point. But with no proof and no confession, Curtis was released, and the internet exploded with frustration. But that wasn't the only lead. A woman named Beth Carter came forward days later, claiming she'd seen the hooded man, the stranger who jumped the fence, 2 nights before the attack. According to her, he was behind the dumpsters of the grocery store on 3rd Street, feeding scraps to 2 large dogs, one of which looked exactly like the attacker. She said he didn't look homeless, exactly, but something about him was off. Like a soldier who hasn't been to war in a while, she said. Quiet. Sharp. Watching everything. When she asked him if the dogs were his, he didn't answer. Just stared at her until she walked away. That detail shook people. It meant he might not have been a passerby after all. If he knew the dog, if he'd seen it before, maybe this wasn't some random act of heroism. Maybe he was tracking the dog, or watching to see what it would do. And if that was true, why didn't he stop it sooner? Why wait until the very last second? Theories kept stacking up. Some said he used to own the dog and had lost control of it. Others believed he was a kind of vigilante, someone who moved from town to town shutting down illegal breeders and rescuing dangerous animals before they hurt anyone. One especially viral post claimed he was an ex-military contractor, dishonorably discharged, who'd been training dogs overseas and returned to the States under mysterious circumstances. There was even talk of him being part of a secretive rescue network, a group of anonymous volunteers who intervene in cases where animals are being used as weapons. All of it was speculation. None of it could be confirmed, but it kept people watching, commenting, sharing. Because now, this wasn't just a story about a dog attack. It was a full-blown mystery. And in the middle of it all, Tyler, the boy who'd been attacked, was starting to remember things. Bits and pieces. He told his mom that the dog didn't growl at first. That it looked at him like it knew him. Like it was waiting for something. That strange detail added another layer of confusion. Could it have been a dog from the neighborhood that someone secretly trained? Was Tyler targeted, or just in the wrong place at the wrong time? Was this an accident, or a warning? As more details came out, the mystery only deepened. Surveillance footage from a house near the park showed a man matching the stranger's description walking the dog on a leash days before the attack. But in that video, the dog looked calm, obedient, like it trusted him. That begged the question, what changed? Why was the dog so violent in the park, but so tame before? Was someone else involved? Was the dog drugged? Provoked? And most importantly, was the man in the hoodie a hero, or part of the problem? No one could answer that yet. But the deeper you dig, the stranger it gets. And what the security camera shows just 2 minutes after the man walks out of frame will leave you stunned. Because what follows him is not one dog, but two. What the grainy home security footage captured next shook the investigation to its core. Just 2 minutes after the man in the hoodie vanished from the camera's view, a second dog, larger, darker, and far more aggressive, appeared in the same frame, pacing along the same path. Its eyes gleamed in the streetlight, ears pinned back, muscles twitching like it was tracking something or someone. This wasn't just some coincidence. This was a pattern. But what no one could explain was why this second dog was never reported in the official animal control logs. According to their records, only one dog had been picked up from the park that day. The footage said otherwise. When the video hit social media, it spread like wildfire. Hashtags like #MysteryDog, #HoodedHero, and #ParkAttackCoverup began trending on YouTube, TikTok, and Reddit. Everyone had an opinion. Some were convinced there was a second attacker being hidden by authorities. Others speculated it was a sibling, part of the same litter, trained the same way, still out there, and possibly even more dangerous. But just as momentum was building and new leads were surfacing, something strange happened. The original video, the one with the second dog, vanished from the internet overnight. Every post, every share, even the original upload on the homeowner's account was suddenly unavailable. Attempts to re-upload it resulted in takedowns, citing vague copyright strikes. It was as if someone had flipped a switch and decided the footage could no longer exist. The family, who owned the security camera, refused interviews the next day. Neighbors said a black SUV had parked outside their home late that night, just hours after the video went viral. No plates. Tinted windows. A man in a suit went to the door, stayed for 10 minutes, and then left without saying a word. No one knew who he was. The family hasn't spoken to the media since. At the same time, Tyler's mom received a call from an insurance rep claiming to work for the city's liability division. But when she asked for a callback number and credentials, the man on the line hesitated, then hung up. When she reported the incident, officials claimed no such call was made. Now, she was shaken and angry. But the more she tried to get answers, the more doors began closing in front of her. Police said the investigation was ongoing but wouldn't release further updates. Animal control suddenly clammed up. The vet who first examined the dog refused to speak, citing legal restrictions. It was like someone had thrown a blanket over the entire case. Meanwhile, the man in the hoodie remained a mystery. Online detectives worked day and night, enhancing photos, running facial recognition scans, comparing body movements to old training videos from military K-9 units. One Reddit user posted what they believed was a match, a photo of a man named Reese Dalton, a former Marine dog handler dishonorably discharged after a mission in Syria went tragically wrong. The details were sketchy, but reports from the Times said his team was ambushed after a dog under his command attacked a fellow soldier during a classified op. He disappeared not long after the incident. No public appearances. No known address. Just vanished. And the face? It looked eerily similar. Then came the twist no one expected. An anonymous source reached out to a local journalist investigating the case. She received a package with no return address, no note, just a flash drive. On it was body cam footage from an officer responding to the park attack. But there were scenes on this video that had never been released to the public. In one clip, just after the hooded man secured the dog, the officer's camera captured him whispering something to the animal, something barely audible. Audio filters revealed the words, "You weren't supposed to be here yet." That small sentence sent shockwaves through the team reviewing it. Yet, what did that mean? Was the attack timed? Or, worse, was it planned? The most unsettling part came at the end of the clip. As the man walks away from the scene, the officer calls out to him. Hey, wait, what's your name? The man doesn't turn. But just before he disappears into the trees, he replies, almost under his breath, "You'll know soon enough." That's when the journalist tried to go public with the footage, and her station refused to air it. She uploaded it to her personal blog. Hours later, the blog was taken offline for violations. Her email was hacked, and someone left a typed note under her car windshield. Stop digging. People are watching. What was once a heroic rescue story was now a web of unanswered questions. Why was there a second dog? Who erased the video? Who was Reese Dalton, and why was his record scrubbed clean? And most chilling of all, why was someone going to such great lengths to keep the truth hidden? But the real bombshell came a week later, when a retired animal control officer stepped forward with a sealed file he'd kept hidden for years. Records of an off-the-books euthanasia order for a dog described as aggressively trained, unrecoverable, used in non-sanctioned tactical testing. The handler listed on the file? Reese Dalton. And the location? That same park. But before anyone could confirm the connection, before the file could be turned in, it was stolen. Right out of the officer's locked garage. No broken windows. No forced entry. Just gone. And the only thing left behind was a torn leash looped neatly around the doorknob. Just as the investigation into Reese Dalton and the stolen file had hit a suffocating wall, an unexpected wrinkle began to form in the shadows, one that no one saw coming. Late one evening, Tyler's older sister, Ava, a junior at the local community college and mostly uninvolved in the chaos surrounding her younger brother's attack, received a plain manila envelope slid under her dorm room door. No return address. No markings. Inside was a single printed photo, a timestamp barely visible in the lower corner, taken at the exact moment the hooded man was whispering to the dog in the park. But this photo wasn't blurry or taken from afar. It was clear. Too clear. As if someone had been standing just a few feet away when the photo was taken. The angle, the resolution, it wasn't from a security camera. It was from a DSLR or a long-lens professional camera. Someone had been there, watching. And the most chilling part wasn't the image itself, but what was written on the back of it in tiny block letters. You think this started with your brother? Ava, normally composed and skeptical, felt her stomach drop. She immediately brought the photo to the authorities, but just like before, she was met with polite smiles and empty promises. They told her the image would be added to the file. No updates. No follow-ups. That night, when she returned to her dorm, the same manila envelope was waiting for her again. Only this time, it was empty. Just a blank piece of paper. She went to the campus police, only to be told the security cameras in her hallway had malfunctioned for a 7-hour window that conveniently covered the exact time the envelope must have been delivered. Now Ava was pulled in, willingly or not, and the deeper she looked, the more she realized that someone had been tracking her family for much longer than they knew. Then came the contradictions. The family had been told the dog that attacked Tyler was a stray, unlicensed, unknown, no microchip, no owner. But an anonymous email sent to Ava's school address, one she'd never used for anything related to the attack, contained an attached invoice. It was from a private security firm that specialized in canine threat assessment and behavior reconditioning. The invoice was dated 3 weeks before Tyler's attack. The location listed for the final evaluation and off-leash test? The very same park. And under the dog description, one phrase stood out in bold lettering. Subject passed simulated aggression test under stress Q alpha 4. Ava forwarded the invoice to the journalist who had received the flash drive, hoping to get help unraveling it. But when the journalist tried to trace the security firm, she found something even more disturbing. The company had dissolved 5 years ago. Their website redirected to a shell domain. The address listed on the invoice was for an abandoned industrial warehouse on the edge of town. When Ava and the journalist visited it, they found nothing but broken windows, animal cages stacked in rows, and a burned file cabinet in the corner. One drawer had been ripped off its hinges, and inside, buried beneath layers of ash and rusted staples, was a singed photo of a dog. The same breed as the one that attacked Tyler, German Shepherd, dark coat, half-folded ear, but with one detail that made Ava's heart stop. There was a white patch of fur above its left eye, just like the one Tyler had drawn from memory weeks earlier. But things took a sharper turn when a former college professor of Ava's, Dr. Mallory Grant, a behavioral science expert, reached out after seeing her social media post about the strange invoice. Dr. Grant had once worked under contract for a government behavioral unit that specialized in PTSD therapy using trained animals. She asked to meet in private. When they did, she revealed that she had seen dogs like that before, trained under a now-defunct government program codenamed Project Echo Bark. According to her, these dogs were conditioned with audio and visual cues, used in Black Ops scenarios to sniff out human psychological triggers, even manipulate environments based on stress response feedback. She had left the project after learning it had expanded into unsanctioned territory, military simulations conducted in public spaces without consent. Parks, playgrounds, suburban streets, all designed to see how the dogs responded when real, unpredictable variables were introduced, especially children. At first, Ava thought the professor was exaggerating. But then Dr. Grant pulled out a file folder sheet hidden for years, containing photographs, scanned memos, and dog training profiles. One of them had a name redacted in black ink. But the handler's photo? It was Reese Dalton. Now, Ava and the journalist were on the verge of something massive, something that hinted at a program no one was supposed to know existed, using innocent families as unwitting participants. But before they could go public with what they'd learned, Ava received another message. This one wasn't typed or printed. It was a voicemail left on her phone while she was in class. The voice on the other end wasn't robotic. It was human.
Calm.
Controlled. We see what you're doing. You've gone too far. If you want your brother safe, stop. She froze. No name. No caller ID. Just silence after the threat. Later that night, Tyler's condition worsened. He began waking up from his sleep, screaming the same words over and over. Don't let him take the leash again. Ava had no idea what that meant, but it terrified her. Especially when their mom mentioned that Tyler hadn't heard anyone say the word leash since the day of the attack. Somewhere out there, the truth was bleeding through cracks they weren't supposed to see. But now Ava was beginning to wonder, was the attack on her brother just a test run? A trial? And was Reese Dalton really the hero? Or was he part of the original design? And if so, what was he running from? It started with the headlights. At first, Ava thought it was just a coincidence. Cars come and go, after all. But when the same nondescript gray sedan appeared outside her dorm 3 nights in a row, parked across the street with its engine idling and no one ever getting out, her gut began to twist with that low, gnawing unease that doesn't need proof to feel real. On the 4th night, the car was gone, only to reappear outside her mom's house 30 miles away the very next morning. Her mother noticed it first and called Ava in a panic. "There's someone watching us," she whispered. Not might be.
Is.
That same make, same model, same dent above the rear wheel that Ava had clocked the night before. It wasn't paranoia anymore. Someone was keeping tabs on them. She tried going to the police again, presenting them with a photo she'd taken of the car's license plate, but somehow, the tags came back as expired and registered to a vehicle that had been declared scrapped nearly 2 years ago in a different state. The officer shrugged, offering little more than a polite but dismissive, "We'll keep an eye out." It felt like a rehearsed line. She knew the look he gave her, that quiet but patronizing disbelief, the kind that says you're just scared, not in danger. But she could feel the danger now, palpable, creeping in from the edges like mold in an old basement. Her movements weren't just being tracked, they were being predicted. Then came the first real blow. Ava's closest friend, Ellie, a nursing student who had been helping her look into the hidden file from the warehouse, vanished. No note. No phone call. One moment she was texting about meeting up after class, and the next her phone was off and her apartment door left wide open. Inside, her belongings were untouched. Laptop on the couch.
Coffee half drunk.
But her notebook, The one she used to write everything down was gone. Ava immediately went to campus security, and they told her Ellie had requested a leave of absence earlier that morning. The strange part? The signature on the form didn't match Ellie's handwriting, and the request had come from a fax machine in a different county. But the school shrugged it off, saying, "Students change their plans all the time." Ellie had been afraid. She told Ava just 2 days earlier that she felt like someone had been inside her apartment, even though there was no forced entry. Her keys had been in her purse. Her door had been locked, but she swore her bookshelf was rearranged, slightly, just enough to make her notice. Ava barely slept that night. Every time her eyes drifted shut, she jolted awake from the same dream, Reese Dalton standing in the woods, holding that same leash, not attached to a dog this time, but looped loosely around a child's shoe. Her brother's. And in the dream, he never said a word. Just stared with this hollow expression that made her stomach turn, like he wasn't a person anymore, but a shadow of one. By the next morning, Ava was unraveling. She knew she was being followed. Her phone battery started draining unusually fast, her apps freezing up. She caught her laptop webcam flickering on when she hadn't opened Zoom or FaceTime. She unplugged it, covered it with tape. Still didn't feel safe. Her mom reported strange clicks and static every time she made a call, until her service dropped completely for an entire afternoon with no explanation from her provider. When Ava visited the vet who had first evaluated the dog that attacked Tyler, she found the clinic boarded up. A "closed for renovations" sign hung on the door, but the windows were covered from the inside with newspapers, and the parking lot was empty. A call to the office number rang endlessly before cutting off. It was like pieces of the world were being erased one at a time. And through it all, Tyler got worse. The dreams came every night now. He started drawing strange symbols, circular designs filled with harsh, chaotic lines and jagged arrows. He said they were paths the dog followed. When Ava asked what he meant, he went quiet and whispered, "If I finish the last one, he'll come back." She didn't know if it was a trauma response, a buried memory, or something else entirely. But something inside her told her he wasn't just imagining things. Something had been planted in him, psychologically, emotionally, maybe even neurologically. He was part of something. Something deep and engineered. And now, so was she. Desperate and scared, Ava drove back to the burned warehouse one last time, hoping to find anything they might have missed. But as she stepped inside, flashlight in hand, she froze. The scent of smoke was fresh. Not from the old fire, a new one. Someone had been there recently. Maybe hours ago. She crept deeper, her heart pounding like a drumbeat in her ears, until she reached the place where the singed file folder had once been. It was gone now, of course. But something else had been left in its place. Purposefully. A copy of the same photograph she'd received weeks ago. The one of Reese whispering to the dog. Only this time, someone had drawn something over it in black marker. A circle around Reese's head. And underneath it, just 3 words, scrawled in jagged handwriting. "He knows you." She staggered backward, hand over her mouth, breath caught in her throat. Her vision swam with panic. The message wasn't just a threat, it was personal. Whoever was doing this knew where she'd be, what she'd find, and most terrifying of all, what she feared. She wasn't chasing the truth anymore. The truth was chasing her. And at that moment, as the wind howled through the broken windows and her flashlight began to flicker, Ava realized she wasn't alone in the building. She should have trusted her instincts. Every warning sign, every sleepless night, every flicker of doubt that crept into her mind wasn't paranoia. It was a whisper from the truth, begging to be heard. As Ava crept backward out of the burned-out warehouse, breath shallow, heart pounding, something moved in her peripheral vision. She spun around, flashlight trembling in her hand, and there he was, Reese Dalton. But not in uniform. Not in his usual hoodie. He stood there in a plain t-shirt and jeans, arms raised in surrender, no aggression in his eyes. Only something deeper. Regret. And exhaustion. Ava froze, torn between confrontation and fear, but before she could say a word, he spoke in a low, urgent voice. "You need to stop looking into this. They're not watching you because you're close to the truth. They're watching you because you were never supposed to be a part of this at all. Ava stared at him, blinking, barely able to process the words. He continued, his voice shaking like it hurt to admit it. I wasn't there by accident that day in the park. I didn't jump the fence because I was a hero. I was sent there to pull the plug. That dog was part of a trial program. A controlled aggression simulation meant to test behavioral response triggers in children. It went off the rails. Your brother wasn't supposed to be there. The program was targeting another kid. Ava's knees buckled slightly as she tried to absorb what he was saying. But you saved him. Reese looked away. I wasn't supposed to. I was ordered to contain the situation. The leash I used? That wasn't mine. It was part of the experiment kit. I improvised because I saw something I wasn't prepared for. Your brother didn't just react. He connected to the dog. That wasn't supposed to happen. The animals were trained to engage, not to respond emotionally. But Tyler, he calmed it. That's what scared them. She wanted to scream.
Cry.
Punch him.
But something inside her said not to.
He wasn't done. And what came next shattered every assumption she had held. It's not about the dog, Reese whispered. It's about your family. The air felt like it had been sucked from the room. Ava's mouth opened, but no words came out. I did some digging after that day, he continued. Something wasn't sitting right with me. Tyler's reaction. The shutdown. The files disappearing. But when I looked deeper, I found out that your dad wasn't who he said he was. The man you grew up with, David Russell, wasn't just some mid-level city engineer. He used to work in cyber operations. He ran simulations for behavior prediction models, projects that were later funneled into the same division that trained the dogs. And get this, his personnel file disappeared from every database before the attack. Ava's skin went cold. Her dad had died 2 years ago in a car crash. That's what they'd been told.
Quick.
Tragic. Unquestioned. But now, she wasn't sure if she believed anything anymore. Reese pulled out a flash drive from his pocket and held it out to her. Your father was trying to shut down the program before he died. He flagged their methods, their recruitment practices. He called them unethical, dangerous. He walked away or tried to. This drive, it's got voice memos, emails, a list of children who were flagged for testing without parental consent. Tyler's name wasn't on the list, but yours was. Ava stumbled back like she'd been hit in the chest. That's impossible, she whispered. No, Reese said, his eyes dark. You were supposed to be in the park that day. You were the variable. Your dad changed the plan at the last second. Tyler was never meant to be there. They switched targets without authorization. I was sent to shut it down when it started going off script. That's why I was watching. A storm of emotions boiled inside her. Grief, rage, disbelief. Her whole world tilted on its axis. The boy she thought had been attacked by chance was a bystander in a twisted experiment that had roots deeper than she ever imagined. Her father, who she'd mourned without question, had been trying to protect them, possibly killed for it. Her brother wasn't just traumatized. He was altered, marked. And now she was being followed not because she was getting close to a story, but because she was the story all along. Ava took the flash drive with trembling hands, but before she could say another word, Reese's eyes darted past her shoulder. He grabbed her arm. We have to go.
Now.
Ava turned and saw it. A red laser, blinking faintly on the warehouse wall. Then another. 2 more. They weren't alone anymore. They didn't speak as they ran. Ava's lungs burned, her legs trembling beneath her as she followed Reese through the overgrown field behind the warehouse, weaving through tall grass and broken fencing while shadows moved at the edge of her vision. The silence was deafening, broken only by their rapid breath and the crunch of dirt beneath their feet. She didn't dare look back. Whatever they saw in that warehouse wasn't just surveillance, it was a signal. Someone had been waiting for them to cross a line, and now that they had, there was no going back. They made it to Reese's truck parked beneath a thicket of trees a few blocks down. Ava jumped in without hesitation, slamming the door just as he hit the gas, tires kicking up dust as they barreled down the back roads, trying to outrun something that felt closer than ever. It wasn't until they'd driven over 20 miles in complete silence that Ava finally spoke, her voice raw and cracked from the weight pressing against her chest. "You said my name was on the list. What does that mean? What did they want from me?" Reese hesitated, his fingers tightening around the steering wheel. "I don't know everything," he said finally. "But from what your dad recorded, they were looking for patterns. Children who responded to certain triggers, sounds, images, light frequencies. They weren't just testing behavior. They were mapping neurological responses and cataloging kids who reacted outside the expected models. You were one of those kids. Your EEG scans flagged something they hadn't seen before. That's why your father tried to bury the project." Ava leaned back, staring blankly at the landscape whipping past the windows. Her thoughts spiraled. Her childhood had always felt normal, stable, safe. She remembered her dad reading bedtime stories, taking her to school, teaching her how to ride a bike. But then she remembered the tests, the machines, the time she was sick for several weeks and couldn't go outside, the dream studies, the weird headphones she had to wear for hours while watching flashing patterns on a screen. Her mom had called it a research grant. Ava had forgotten. Or maybe she had been made to forget. That night, they found shelter at a roadside motel off the interstate, the kind that smelled like stale smoke and old carpet. Reese brought in only what they needed, drawing the curtains tight before booting up an encrypted laptop and inserting the flash drive. As it loaded, Ava sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her phone in silence. She hadn't heard from her mom all day. She called twice. No answer. Not even voicemail. She texted. Nothing. Her stomach churned as the sense of dread clawed its way higher into her chest. The screen lit up with folders, dated, coded, heavily encrypted, but one caught her eye. Project LYRA/subject. A. Russell. Her initials. Her birth date. She clicked. Video logs popped up. Memos. One video was titled, Session 14, Emotional Displacement Response. She hovered the cursor over it, but didn't play it. Her hand was shaking too badly. She turned to Reese. "Why didn't my dad ever tell me? If he was trying to protect us, why didn't he say anything?" Reese glanced over, his expression softer now. "Because he knew they were watching him. If he told you, they'd target you sooner. He thought disappearing would buy you time." Ava's eyes welled with tears. Anger and grief tangled like barbed wire inside her. He had died, keeping the secret, left her unarmed against it. And now she was in deeper than she'd ever imagined, with no clear way out. But the worst part wasn't the silence or the fear or the uncertainty. It was what happened next. Her phone buzzed. One message. "Stop, or she disappears next." Attached was a photo. Her mother, bound to a chair in what looked like a basement, bruised and unconscious, with a timestamp from just 15 minutes ago. Ava's scream caught in her throat. She dropped the phone. Her vision blurred. This wasn't theoretical anymore. It wasn't just a mystery. It was a war, and they were using the one person she loved most as leverage. She grabbed Reese's arm, trembling. "They have her. They have my mom." He stared at the screen, jaw clenched. "They're trying to shut you down. They know you've seen too much." Ava stumbled backward, pacing the room like her body was on fire. She couldn't think straight. She wanted to run, fight, scream. But above all, she wanted her mother back. She looked at Reese, voice cracking. "We have to go to the cops. We have to do something." Reese shook his head. "You go to the cops now, and they'll make you disappear too.
You don't know who's in on this.
They've infiltrated systems, agencies, local authorities, hospitals. You think this is just some underground experiment? It's not. It's institutional. You walk into a police station and we'll never see you again." And then came the worst choice of all. Another message. 1 hour. Delete the flash drive. Walk away. Or she dies. No bluff. No gray area. Just a clear, brutal ultimatum. Ava sat down, staring at the glowing laptop screen. Inside that drive was every answer she had been chasing, her father's last stand, the project's blueprint, the truth about Tyler and herself. but holding on to it meant her mother would pay the price. Deleting it meant they'd be safe for now, but she'd be erasing every last thread that could unravel the people who did this. Her hands hovered over the keyboard. One keystroke. That's all it would take. Reese stepped back. "This is your choice," he said quietly. "Whatever you decide, we'll go from there." And there, in that suffocating moment of silence, Ava realized what real fear felt like. It wasn't the fear of being hunted or exposed, it was the fear of choosing wrong. The fear that no matter what path she took, someone she loved would suffer. Her mother, her brother, her own sanity. The clock was ticking. And somewhere out there, someone was waiting for her to blink. Ava didn't delete the flash drive. Not because she was brave, not because she had a perfect plan, but because somewhere deep in her gut, she knew giving in wouldn't save her mother. It would only delay the inevitable. The people who orchestrated this had no intention of leaving any witnesses. And if her mother was still alive, it was only because they needed leverage. That leverage vanished the moment Ava pressed delete. She stared at the countdown timer ticking away on her phone and made a choice. She was going to fight, even if it meant losing everything. She copied the contents of the drive to a hidden cloud, encrypted it with a code only she could crack, and told Reese, "We find her.
Now."
But as they prepared to move, the foundation of everything began to crack. Reese's phone buzzed with a call from a restricted number. He hesitated for a second before answering, and that one hesitation said more than any words could. Ava watched him closely. His eyes narrowed, his jaw clenched, and when he hung up, his entire posture changed. He looked at her, face unreadable. "We have a location," he said. They moved her. "She's being held at one of the old research facilities outside Denver. We have to go tonight." Ava's heart pounded, but something didn't feel right. "Who gave you that info?" He didn't answer. She asked again. This time, he said, "An old contact. Someone I trust." But Ava saw the shift in his demeanor, the stiffness in his voice, the way he avoided eye contact. She said nothing, just nodded, playing along, but her instincts were screaming. They drove for hours through the dead of night, tension thick between them. Ava kept her eyes on Reese, every movement, every word, and by the time they pulled up to the remote compound, her doubt had hardened into something undeniable. They parked far enough from the facility to remain hidden and approached on foot, using the treeline for cover. The place looked abandoned, boarded windows, rusted gates, overgrown walkways, but Ava had learned by now that appearances meant nothing. As they got closer, Reese pulled out a small radio and clicked it twice, whispering into it. She froze. "Who are you talking to?" "No one," he said quickly, too quickly. "Let me see it." He shook his head. "Not now. We don't have time." Ava didn't wait. She lunged, grabbing the radio from his hand. But before she could say a word, a voice crackled through the speaker. "Subject is with me. Approaching west entrance." Ava's blood ran cold. Reese stepped back. "Ava, listen. I didn't want it to go down like this. You sold me out." "It's not like that," he said, trying to reach for her. "They said they'd kill you if I didn't cooperate. I thought if I played along, I could buy us time. But then they took your mom and I didn't have a choice. They're not just running tests, Ava. They're building something way bigger than anything we imagined. You don't know what you're involved in." She backed away, heart pounding, betrayal slicing deeper than any threat ever could. "Then tell me, what is this really about?" Reese hesitated, then finally spoke. "It's not about you. It's about people like you. They found a way to trigger certain responses in the brain. Empathy, aggression, compliance. They're testing long-term influence, how to manipulate behavior through audiovisual stimuli. Your dad figured it out. That's why they killed him. He was going to expose them." Ava was shaking, tears in her eyes, breath shallow. "And what about my mom?" "She's a bargaining chip. Like you were. They were never going to let either of you go." Suddenly, a deafening noise echoed through the trees, metal doors clanking open, floodlights blazing to life. Men in tactical gear swarmed the yard below, guns drawn. Reese looked at her, eyes full of regret. Run. But Ava didn't run. She turned and disappeared into the woods, heart pounding like a war drum, knowing she had only minutes, maybe seconds, before they'd catch up. She zigzagged through the dark, leaping over logs, ducking under branches, until she reached the old rail tunnel she'd spotted earlier on a map. She slid down the embankment, cutting her hands on rocks, and crawled into the narrow space, every muscle in her body screaming for rest. She pulled out her phone, opened the encrypted drive, and started uploading the files to an anonymous drop server tied to whistleblower forums. Outside, footsteps drew closer. Flashlights swept across the landscape like searchlights. She held her breath, thought of her father, her mother, of Tyler, and suddenly it all clicked. Tyler wasn't just a random case. He was part of the same program. She remembered the flash drive had a folder labeled Echo Group. Tyler's name was in the logs. So was another, Kay Maynard. Her mother's maiden name. Ava froze. Her throat tightened. Her mother had known. She wasn't just a victim. She'd been involved. At some point, she had worked with the very people who took Tyler. Ava's mind spiraled with questions. Did her mom try to stop it? Or was she protecting herself all along? The upload bar on her screen hit 87%. Then the tunnel lit up. A flashlight beam pierced the darkness, and a voice called out. End of the line, Ava. But as the story veered toward what felt like its final hour, Ava realized she hadn't even begun to understand the depth of what she was fighting. The real question now wasn't who was behind the conspiracy. It was how far they were willing to go, and how much she was willing to sacrifice to stop them. The tunnel was cold and damp, with the distant echo of boots against gravel bouncing through the narrow chamber, like a ticking clock. Ava crouched low, her breath coming in shallow bursts, her fingers trembling over the screen of her phone. 94%. 98. One more second. Just one. The upload finally hit 100, and the encrypted files, the ones holding the truth about Tyler, about the Echo Group, about her parents, were launched into the cloud beyond anyone's reach. But there was no time to celebrate. A silhouette appeared at the mouth of the tunnel, and Ava could see now it wasn't one of the guards. It was her mother. Only it wasn't the version of her mother she remembered, the sweet, soft-spoken woman who made pancakes on Sundays and sang off-key in the car. This woman was calm, composed, and far too quiet for someone who'd supposedly been rescued. She stepped closer, her figure outlined by the flashlight behind her. Ava stared, her mind reeling. You were part of it, she whispered, her voice barely holding together. You helped them. Her mother didn't deny it. She knelt beside Ava, looking her in the eyes, and with the same gentle tone she used when Ava had scraped her knee as a kid, she said, You weren't supposed to find out like this. The walls closed in. Ava's stomach turned. Tyler. The tests. The experiments.
Dad.
You were working with them the whole time. I tried to stop it, her mother said. At first, it was about research, about healing. We wanted to correct behavioral disorders. PTSD, schizophrenia, even addiction. But then funding came in from places we didn't question, and the tests grew darker, more invasive. Your father threatened to expose it. He didn't realize how far they were willing to go to keep it buried. Ava's heart thudded against her chest, each word slicing deeper than the last. So you let them kill him? Tears welled up in her mother's eyes, but Ava couldn't tell if they were real or just well-rehearsed. I had no choice. I tried to protect you. That's why I disappeared. I knew they'd come for you next. But the project didn't die with your dad. It was reborn. The data we collected, it worked, Ava. It really worked. We can influence behavior now. On a mass scale. That's why they needed Tyler. That's why they need you. Ava backed away, her voice shaking. I'm not part of your experiment. But you are, her mother said gently. You always were. And then she pulled something from her coat. A small metallic device, no bigger than a thumb drive, with an odd pulsing light. Ava recognized it immediately. It was the neural disruptor she'd seen referenced in the files. A prototype, capable of emitting a signal that could shut down conscious thought for minutes at a time. You have one chance, her mother said. Come with me. Help me finish what we started. Or stay here and let them wipe you clean. But before Ava could answer, another voice rang out behind them. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Reese stepped into the light, gun drawn, blood trailing down the side of his face. He looked broken, but determined. I followed you here. I figured it out. She's not just a scientist. She's the director of the program now. Ava's mother turned slowly, her smile never fading. You're too late. Then, chaos erupted. A flashbang went off, blinding light filling the tunnel as armed guards swarmed in. Ava dropped to the ground, crawling toward the side shaft she'd mapped out earlier. She could hear Reese firing, yelling her name, while her mother calmly walked through the mayhem like it didn't touch her. Ava squeezed through the narrow corridor, choking on dust and adrenaline until she emerged into a utility room. The door slammed shut behind her, but she didn't stop. Up a staircase. Down another hallway. Her phone buzzed. Download complete. Link verified. The files were live. The world would know. Everything. She burst into the final room, the old surveillance center. Dozens of monitors blinked to life, showing every corridor of the compound. And right in the center screen, Ava saw her mother, staring directly into the camera, smiling. And then the monitors went dark. The room powered down. The silence was deafening. Ava turned, and her mother stood there, not even out of breath. I designed this place, she said softly. Every exit, every blind spot. You think you've won, but all you did was open the door for something bigger. People are already using the tech. It's in your social media. Your entertainment. Every time someone watches a trending video, every time someone clicks, like, they're giving us data. Ava's mind reeled. You're brainwashing people. Her mother nodded, calm as ever. We're shaping them. It's already happening. You can't stop it. But Ava had one last move left. She reached into her jacket, pulled out her father's backup drive, one he'd hidden in a photo frame before he died. On it was the kill code for the neural signal. Ava uploaded it directly into the facility's mainframe. Maybe I can't stop it everywhere, she said, her voice steady. But I can burn this place down. The screens lit up red. Override detected. Systems shut down in 5, 4, 3. Her mother lunged, but Ava slammed the emergency door shut, locking her in the server room. She ran. Alarms blared. Fire suppression kicked in. Ava pushed through the front gate as the sky above lit up with the glow of something collapsing from within. She didn't look back. And just when she thought it was over, just when she reached the tree line and collapsed to the ground, heart pounding, lungs aching, her phone buzzed. A new message. No sender. Just 4 words. You only delayed us. The sun was beginning to rise over the tree line, casting long streaks of orange and gold across the quiet field where Ava now sat with her back against the cool metal of an abandoned electrical box. Her body ached in places she didn't know could hurt, and the silence around her, so complete, so still, felt almost deafening after the chaos of the last few hours. But for the first time in what felt like forever, she let herself breathe. Not just inhale and exhale, but truly breathe, like someone who had outrun a nightmare, crawled through fire, and lived to tell the tale. Her hands trembled as she unlocked her phone, not to check for messages or threats, but to open a secure network where the files she uploaded had begun circulating. Journalists, cybersecurity experts, and human rights activists were already reacting. The trending hashtags, #neurocontrol, #behavioral manipulation, #mindhack, flashed across her screen like fireworks, each one a signal that the world was waking up. Still, even with the truth out in the open, something deep inside Ava remained unsettled. The text she received, "You only delayed us," wasn't just a threat. It was a promise. A reminder that what she had fought against wasn't limited to a lab hidden underground or a deranged theory held by a rogue group of scientists. It was systemic. It had roots in governments, in corporations, in social platforms where billions unknowingly gave away their thoughts and behaviors one click at a time. The Echo Group might have been the epicenter, but the tremors were global. And yet, even in the face of that grim truth, Ava didn't feel powerless anymore. She knew where to look now. She knew how to see through the smoke, spot the signs, track the footprints they tried so hard to cover up. Her father's sacrifice, Reese's wounds, even her mother's twisted logic, it had all led to this moment. And she wasn't going to waste it. Weeks passed, and Ava moved through different cities, never staying too long, always using encrypted networks and burner devices. The world had shifted. Some governments denied the revelations outright, calling them conspiracies. Others launched investigations that quickly turned into public scandals. Civilian protests broke out in places Ava had never even visited, as people demanded accountability for data misuse and behavioral targeting. Late-night talk shows brought on neuropsychologists and whistleblowers. Influencers made content trying to break down how subtle manipulation had been disguised as everyday interaction. Trending topics on YouTube like how algorithms control you and is your brain being hacked exploded in popularity. Ava watched it all unfold from behind the scenes, a ghost in the digital machine she once feared. But not everything was so easily resolved. Reese never resurfaced. Whether he was taken, hiding, or simply done with the fight, Ava didn't know. And her mother, after the facility collapsed and burned, no trace of her body was found. Only a shattered surveillance lens and a single gold bracelet that Ava remembered from childhood remained in the ashes. Deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that her mother had walked away from it all untouched, preparing for whatever came next. Then came the final message. It arrived one morning, weeks after Ava had posted a detailed video expose that went viral, cracking 10 million views in just 2 days. It featured proof of the Echo Group's experiments, voice recordings, internal documents, and a voiceover that Ava recorded in a single take, her voice steady, resolute, and heartbreakingly human. She didn't reveal her identity in the video, but people started calling her the Signal. Comments flooded the upload, some praising her, some doubting her, and others terrified of what it meant. But that night, as she walked alone through a sleepy Midwest town, she got a notification from an unknown app she didn't remember installing. When she opened it, there was no message. Just a video feed, grainy and dim, showing a boy in a park tossing a ball to a dog. She froze. It was the same park from the beginning, the same place where the dog had attacked. But this time, there was no chaos, no screaming, just peace. And then, in the background, a figure walked into frame, hood up, hands in pockets. They paused at the edge of the grass, watching. And though their face wasn't visible, Ava felt something sink in her gut. It was a warning, or maybe an invitation. The video ended. The app vanished from her phone. She stood there, staring at the screen, wondering if what she had done had made a real difference, or just drawn her deeper into something even more dangerous. But that was the thing about truth. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you know, you can't pretend you don't. And in a world where behavior could be manipulated, thoughts hijacked, and stories erased, Ava knew her story mattered more than ever. It wasn't just about saving a boy in a park or uploading a file. It was about fighting to keep control over the one thing no one should ever be able to take from you, your mind. As she turned and walked into the dawn, the final words of her voiceover echoed in her head. They tried to rewrite my story. But now, I'm writing the next chapter myself. And somewhere out there, the next signal was already forming.